Okay, so this is a book I've been reading this week. It's called The Family Upstairs. I'm going to read the blurb and then the first chapter. In a large house in London's fashionable Chelsea, a baby is awake in her cot. Well fed and cared for, she is happily waiting for someone to pick her up. In the kitchen lie 3 decomposing corpses. Close to them is a hastily scrawled note. They've been dead for several days. Who has been looking after the baby and where did they go? Libby picks the letter up off the doormat. She turns it in her hands. It looks very formal. The envelope is cream in colour, made of high-grade paper, and feels as though it might even be lined with tissue. The postal frank says, Smithkin, Rudd and Raw Solicitors, Chelsea Manor Street, SW3. She takes the letter into the kitchen and sits it on the table while she fills the kettle and puts a tea bag in a mug. Libby is pretty sure she knows what's in the envelope. She turned 25 last month. She picks up her phone and calls her mother. Mum, she says, it's here, the letter from the trustees. She hears a silence at the other end of the line. She pictures her mum in her own kitchen, 1,000 miles away. Pristine white units, lime green colour-coordinated kitchen accessories, sliding glass doors onto a small terrace with a distant view to the Mediterranean. Oh, she says, right, gosh, have you opened it? No, not yet, I'm just having a cup of tea first. Right, she says again. Shall I stay on the line while you do it? Yes, says Libby, please. She feels a little breathless, as she sometimes does when she's about to stand up and give a sales presentation at work, like she's had a strong coffee. She takes a tea bag out of the mug and sits down. Her fingers caress the corner of the envelope and she inhales. Okay, she says to her mother, I'm doing it right now. Her mum knows what's in here, or at least she has an idea, though she was never told formally what was in the trust. It might, as she has always said, be a teapot and a £10 note. Libby clears her throat and slides her finger under the flap. She pulls out a sheet of thick cream paper and scans it quickly. To Miss Libby Louise Jones, as trustee of the Henry and Martina Lamb Trust, created on 12th of July 1977, I propose to make the distribution from it to you, described in the attached schedule. She puts down the covering letter and pulls out the paperwork. Well, says her mum breathlessly. Still reading, she replies. She skims and her eye is caught by the name of the property. 16 Cheyne Walk, SW3. She assumes it is the property her birth parents were living in when they died. She knows it was in Chelsea. She knows it was big. She had assumed it was long gone, boarded up, sold. Her breath catches hard at the back of her throat when she realises what she's just read. She says, what? It looks like, no, that can't be right. What? The house. They've left me the house. The Chelsea house? Yes, she says. The whole house. I think so. There's a covering letter, something about nobody else named on the trust coming forward in due time. She can't digest it all. My God, I mean that must be worth... Libby breathes in sharply and raises her gaze to the ceiling. This must be wrong, she says. This must be a mistake. Go and see the solicitors, says her mother. Call them, make an appointment, make sure it's not a mistake. But what if it's not a mistake? What if it's true? Well then, my angel, says her mother, and Libby can hear her smile from all these miles away. You'll be a very rich woman indeed. Libby ends the call and stares around her kitchen. 5 minutes ago, this kitchen had been the only kitchen she could afford. This flat, the only one she could buy. Here in this quiet street of terraced cottages in the backwaters of St Albans. She remembers the flats and houses she'd seen during her online searches. The little intakes of breath as her eye caught upon the perfect place. A sun-trapped terrace, an eating kitchen, a 5-minute walk to the station, a bulge of ancient leaded window, the suggestion of cathedral bells from across a green, and then she would see the price and feel herself a fool for ever thinking it might be for her. She'd compromised on everything in the end to find a place that was close to her job and not too far from the train station. There'd been no gut instinct as she stepped across the threshold. Her heart said nothing to her as the estate agent showed her around, but she'd made it a home to be proud of, painstakingly creaming off the best that TK Maxx had to offer, and now her badly converted, slightly awkward one-bedroom flat made her feel happy. She'd bought it, she'd adorned it, it belonged to her. But now it appears she's the owner of a house on the finest street in Chelsea, and suddenly her flat looks like a ridiculous joke, and so does everything else that was important to her 5 minutes ago. The £1,500 a year rise she'd been awarded at work, the hen weekend in Barcelona next month that had taken her 6 months to save for, the MAC eyeshadow she'd allowed herself to buy last weekend as a treat for getting the pay rise. Swinging the weightlessness of the tiny MAC bag from her hand, the shiver of placing the little black capsule in her makeup bag, of knowing that she'd owned it, that she might in fact wear it in Barcelona, where she might also wear the dress her mother bought her for Christmas, the one from French Connection with the lace panel she'd wanted for ages. 5 minutes ago, her joys in life had been small, anticipated, longed for, hard-earned and saved up for. Inconsequential little splurges that meant nothing in the scheme of things, but gave the flat surface of her life enough sparkles to make it worth getting out of bed every morning, to go and do a job which she liked but didn't love. Now she owns a house in Chelsea, and the proportions of her existence have been blown apart. She slides the letter back into its expensive envelope and finishes her tea.